What's up, Grind Squad? It's DG coming at you again, and this time we're going to come with a quick little build guide for Miscreated Monster, aka Frank the Tank. Last night while I was streaming live on Twitch, link in the description, a viewer of mine had asked me to put out a build guide for Miscreated Monster for Spider. So I figured I would definitely get that out for him tonight before I go live. I did want to do a deep dive as far as, covering him tanking in Spider or doing ally protection tanking in other dungeons and faction wars, or even crowd control in arena. But I wanted to get this out before I went live tonight, so we're just going to do a quick little build guide on how you can build Frank for Spider. If you like this video, make sure you hit that like, subscribe, turn notifications on, all that YouTube stuff, and let me know what you think about the video. Alright, let's get into it. Okay, first thing that we're going to look at is Frank's performance in Spider. And I'm going to explain a bit of why he's known as the Spider God and how he is such an efficient tank in Spider. The reason he's a Spider God is because of this reason right here. The fact that he puts up these insane shields. You see how fat that shield is? How you get that shield is actually not very complicated. His A2 scales off HP, AoE, and he puts up shields equivalent to how much damage he does. Now you're thinking, oh, that takes crazy amount of stats, a lot of HP, a lot, crit rate, crit damage, all of that. But believe it or not, it actually doesn't take insane stats. The whole reason that he does his damage is actually more because of the number of enemies that's on the field. As you can look here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 enemies on an AoE. That's all it takes with a bit of crit rate and crit damage. Now, I'm going to let this finish out. As you can tell, no one's really getting hurt very much. Stag Knight's getting, aggro. But Frank will be putting up another shield here before too long. And that'll give Royal Guards enough time to actually finish off the stage. So I'm gonna let this finish off and we're gonna hop over to the champion build page. Alright, so now that we've seen how he performs and what he does in the Spider, I'm gonna go over the gear. When it comes to building Frank, he actually is not very gear intensive at all, but he does require certain numbers to be met. As far as his sets goes, Frank is very, very flexible. I prefer him in Relentless because even proccing one extra turn to cycle that shield around can be helpful in longer runs. But speed, accuracy, crit rate, crit damage, even life and immortal sets will work just fine on Frank. Taking a look at his stats, as you can tell here, none of my stats are really all that insane. Frank already has a high base HP. So 60,000 is very easy to acquire for Frank. Other than that, 189 speed. I just have a moderate amount of speed, so that way he goes before the enemies and also while there are plenty of spiderlings up on that first round. As far as crit rate, that can fluctuate. If you are at Spider 20, where it's Spirit and Frank's Magic, you only actually need 85% crit rate. But if you're pushing up through the Spider stages, you're going to be facing a variety of different affinities. So having the 100% crit rate is suggested for that. But once you get to Spider 20, you can break it down to a nice even 85, maybe a little more or whatever. And one thing you might actually be surprised on is the fact that I don't have a crazy amount of crit damage on him. Unfortunately, I didn't have really, early to mid game, or mid game to early in game gear, so this was as low as I could get him. But at 160, even probably 150 crit damage, he'll put up a nice fat shield that'll keep your champions alive throughout the fight. If you do have very squishy champions and yet your runs go for exceptionally long, 2-3 minutes long, then you might want to bump up his speed and his crit damage a little bit. But from what I've tested, these numbers are just fine. And then down here on his accuracy, even though he does proc stuns, if you have a fairly efficient team that can get it done in 1 to 2 minutes, you probably don't actually need accuracy on him at all. The stuns do help with spiderling controls, but if you can pump out a nice fat shield and you have him booked and you got him cycling through his skills, then he'll be able to keep everybody alive with his shields alone. Now that being said, it kind of does depend on your team. If you have long runs, and you might really want to throw accuracy on him, so that way you can, he can help with Spiderling control. As far as what his actual gear, the actual gear he has on him, as his gloves, you just want something simple, crit rate. You don't have to actually crit damage build him. Just a pair of 5-6 star crit rate gloves will help a lot. Again, you only need to get to 85 to 100% crit rate, and the rest of his stats aren't all that intensive. His chest, you want the best HP chest you can put on him, whether it's got speed or crit damage or whatever. You want a nice fat HP chest on him, because the rest of your gear isn't really going to be centered around HP too much. And of course, speed boots, as most champions require, you throw speed boots on him. As far as his accessories go, the ring, I probably could have and should have went HP ring, but this ring will actually be a good ring for his secondary build, which you'll be seeing later on in the video. So stay tuned for the more traditional Frank build, or the more traditional tank Frank. His necklace, you definitely want to go crit damage, whether you got crit damage gloves or crit damage or crit rate gloves. Throw a crit damage necklace on him, something nice and fat. And then as far as the banner goes, you could go HP with speed, or if you're kind of aiming for those stuns to land, then you might want to go accuracy and get a chunk of speed on there. I could have went HP here, or even defense for the future build or something like that, but accuracy was what I had, easily available and leveled up, so I used that. Other than that, it doesn't really take much as far as his gear build goes. Again, you've seen the stat requirements, it's not very high. On his masteries, I went something pretty basic as far as like a nuke build would be. Got the crit rate, crit damage, make sure you get the Heart of Glory so he inflicts additional damage with full HP, Whirlwind of Death, and the other ones that rely on, stat increases based off enemies killed isn't really all that prominent, just because, unless you build him with high crit damage, he's not really going to have too many opportunities of killing the spiderlings, but he could, so I grabbed it up anyways. Now, Ruthless Ambush is very important. This is probably one of the best masteries for the Spider Frank that there is. Increases damage inflicted by 8% for the first hit on each enemy. Well, if those spiderlings do die, whether from Frank or any other source, whatever, when they drop back down and respawn, that's a fresh enemy. So this procs again whenever he does another hit on the spiderlings, which has increased damage, increased shield. It is what it is. Cyclone of Violence, not really all that prominent. I just use it to bridge down to the bottom. Again, Kill Streak is another one where the damage is increased based off of how many enemies killed. So, kind of depends on how you build your Frank. And then Stoke to Fury, I just put this on him to bridge down to the Flawless Execution. But if by chance he was to get targeted, whether you're going through other Spiderling stages or something like that, this will increase his damage based on how many debuffs he has on him. Spiderlings, they do poison, so it can be helpful. And then I drop down here for Flawless Execution for the consistent additional 20% crit damage. Again, it's just mainly for consistency, but if you wanted to, especially if you have longer runs or something like that and you needed to put up a fatter shield, you have squishier champions, you could go Helm Smasher. It's not as consistent, but when it does proc, it's definitely going to give you a larger shield. Other than that, that's the offense tree. Going over to the support tree, really the accuracy ones, unless you're planning on those stuns landing, aren't that big of a deal, but I use that to bridge down here to get Evil Eye. Evil Eye is a very important and very prominent mastery for any of your spider champions, so definitely make sure you pick that up. Lure Still is kind of dependent whether you throw him in Relentless or Immortal or Speed or Crit Rate, actually, whatever. So if you're getting built in other things besides Relentless, then he can definitely benefit from Lure Still. And Sniper, he does have defense down, but he's not a defense down champion, so really Sniper is kind of a waste there. It's not necessary, but I just did it to fill a slot. So that's about it for the masteries. Now, granted, keep in mind that even though these masteries work, there are other variations, so feel free to play around, tweak, and theory craft on your own build. Well, that about covers it for the quick build guide on Frank the Tank. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from it and realized that it actually doesn't take very high stats to get Frank to work in Spider. His kit was just built for that, and it's pretty easy to get him up to a point where he can really just carry your team through Spider. If I've missed anything, you guys feel free to leave them down in the comments. I'd like to know what you guys think and how you guys utilize Frank. I will be going into and doing a deep dive as far as covering every area of the game that he's proficient at and showing you the different builds and things like that. So again, make sure you hit that like, subscribe, turn the notifications on. It definitely helps the channel, helps me grow, helps me know that the content that I'm bringing to you is, something that you guys enjoy. And until next time, happy grinding, and may the shards break in your favor. Peace.